Back in 1986, the Arctic was still a total mystery.
We were there for Project Borealis, hunting for secrets hidden deep under the ice.
For a young scientist like me, it felt like the adventure of a lifetime. Station Polaris was our home, tucked right into the ice shelf. It was a busy place with labs and a hangar for our sub.
Just four of us, totally cut off from the rest of the world.
The work was hard, but we were really getting somewhere. Elias seemed like a new man, totally fired up about what we were finding. I spent all my time getting the Nautilus ready for our first big dive. Then things started feeling a little off. Elias started acting weird, locking himself away in his private bay for hours. One minute he was pumped, the next he was just sitting there in total silence.
So Lena kept losing our satellite connection, and she couldn't figure out why.
Elias just brushed it off like it was no big deal. It was super weird because he usually freaked out over even the smallest tech glitch. Then, Kai found these clean, surgical cuts on the sub's hydraulic lines. It definitely wasn't the ice, and we both knew it. Elias tried to play it off, but that's when I really started to worry. The hydrophones started picking up these weird, rhythmic pulses from way down deep. They sounded almost like a heartbeat, which was honestly pretty creepy. Elias got obsessed with them and started locking down the whole station. I found this wrench with Elias's initials hidden right by the comms panel. It made no sense for him to be messing with that stuff. That's when I realized something really bad was going on. Lena found out someone had wiped all our satellite logs. She was totally crushed, but then she got really angry. She'd seen Elias in her bay at night, and we finally knew he was the one sabotaging us. Then we found this weird glowing mineral down by the vents. It was like nothing I'd ever seen before, totally defying physics. Elias looked at it with this crazy, greedy look in his eyes that really scared me. Elias locked the sample away, keeping it all to himself. His obsession turned into a dark, possessive mania. I realized he wasn't the mentor I once admired anymore. The station felt like it was slowly dying.
Elias used the sonar pings to justify his erratic behavior.
He locked down the habitat, keeping us isolated and afraid. Lena found patterns in the logs that didn't add up. She showed me evidence of systemic tampering with the power. Elias was systematically dismantling our ability to survive. Kai was working on a hull breach when the beam gave way. Elias was the first to reach him, but he moved so slowly. Kai died an hour later, whispering about a loose bolt. The station felt like a tomb after Kai died. Lena's grief hardened into a cold, sharp resolve. She found an experimental transmitter hidden in a locker. I heard the shouting from down the hall. Elias stood over Lena, who was slumped against the bench. He held the wrench, his face a mask of unhinged rage. Elias lunged at me, the wrench arcing through Yale. We fought in the dim light, a brutal, silent struggle. He tried to push me toward the icy, dark water. I broke free and scrambled toward the transmitter. My fingers fumbled with the wires, trying to bypass the protocols. Elias grabbed my throat, but I hit the transmit button. I choked out the truth into the microphone. I told them about the sabotage and the murders. Elias's grip tightened and my vision went black. The world received a fragmented, chilling broadcast. Official reports dismissed it as a tragic accident. I survived, found days later in a survival pod. Recovery was a long, painful road. My body was broken, but my mind was worse. I just kept replaying that final night over and over. When I tried to tell the truth, nobody wanted to hear it. They looked at me with pity, like I was just losing it. Nobody could believe a guy like Elias was a killer. I had one last shot, the broadcast. I reached out to Anya, a brilliant cryptographer I knew. She was the only one who actually listened to me. Anya spent months digging through those audio files.
She focused on that weird thrumming sound Elias kept talking about.
It wasn't some deep-sea monster. It was all fake. Then, she finally found it. Buried under all that static, she heard my voice. My confession was there the whole time. The evidence just kept piling up. They even found that wrench with his initials on.
It was the final piece of the puzzle.
The truth was finally out there. Elias had been planning this the whole time.
He killed them just to get the glory for himself?
His whole legacy just fell apart. The world realized they'd been lied to.
The real monster wasn't some alien. It was him.
The station is gone now, buried in the ice. It's a monument to what happened out there. My life is different now, but the truth is out. Could you have heard the truth in that broadcast?
Or would you have fallen for his lies too?
The truth never stays buried forever. I often find myself back at the edge of the ice in my dreams. The wind howls with a sound that feels like a human voice. It's a haunting reminder that some secrets are never truly lost. The world has moved on, but I haven't. I still see Elias's face in the shadows of every room I enter. It's like he's still watching, waiting for me to slip up. I keep the wrench in a locked box under my bed.
It's a heavy, rusted piece of metal, but it feels like it weighs 1,000 pounds.
Every time I touch it, I'm back in that lab, hearing the struggle. Anya calls me sometimes, late at night. She's still digging, still finding things that don't add up. We're both obsessed, I guess, but it's the only way to keep the truth alive.
The public has forgotten the name Station Polaris.
They think it's just another tragic story from the archives. But I know that if they looked closer, they'd see the cracks in the official narrative.
I wonder if Lena and Kai knew what was coming. Did they see the change in Elias before I did? I hope they didn't suffer, but I know they did. That's the weight I carry every single day. Sometimes I think about going back.
Not to the station, but to the ice.
To find the place where it all happened, and just stand there. Maybe then I could finally let go of the ghosts. But the ice is a cruel keeper. It doesn't give up its secrets easily. It swallows everything, the good and the bad, and leaves nothing but silence in its wake. That's the real lesson of Polaris. I'm still here, though. I'm still talking, still writing, still trying to make sure the world knows what really happened. Because if I stop, then Elias wins. And I can't let that happen. So I'll keep telling the story. I'll keep listening to the static, waiting for the truth to break through. Because in the end, that's all we have. The truth and the courage to speak it. I wonder if the ice remembers what happened that night. It feels like the frozen landscape is a silent witness to the betrayal. Even now, the cold still seeps into my bones. I keep the old logbooks in a stack on my desk. They are the only physical proof I have left of the mission. Sometimes I flip through them, looking for the entries I know were altered. Anya sent me a new file yesterday. She says she found something buried deep in the static. It's a sound that shouldn't be there, a rhythmic pulse. I listen to the recording over and over. It's faint, almost imperceptible, but it's there. It's the sound of a man who thought he was a god. The public doesn't want to hear this. They want their heroes to stay heroes. But the truth isn't simple, and it isn't heroic. I remember the way Elias looked at the sample. It wasn't the look of a scientist. It was the look of a man who found his ticket to immortality. Lena knew. She was the first one to see through his facade. She found the inconsistencies in the maintenance reports. Kai was the one who paid the ultimate price. He was just trying to fix the hull.
He didn't deserve to die in that frozen hell. I still have the wrench.
It feels like it weighs 1,000 pounds.
Every time I touch it, I'm back in that lab.
The truth is a heavy burden. I'll keep telling the story. If I stop, then Elias wins.
I still think about those early days at the station.
Everything felt like a dream back then. We were so sure we were on the verge of something huge. Elias was the one who brought us all together.
I trusted him like a father figure.
I had no idea his ambition was turning dark. Then things started to feel a little off. Tools would go missing and sensors would glitch out. Elias started locking himself away in his private bay. Lena was the first one to notice the interference. She kept reporting outages, but the diagnostics were clean.
I could feel the dread starting to creep in.
The real turning point was the damage to the Nautilus. It wasn't ice, and it wasn't a mechanical failure. It was a clean, surgical cut.
Elias tried to brush it off as microfractures.
But Kai wasn't buying it for a second.
We were trapped in a station being dismantled from the inside.
Then we found the wrench.
It was hidden near the comms conduit. It had Elias's initials on it. Lena found out the data logs were wide. It wasn't an accident. It was a systematic purge. She was terrified, and I knew we were in trouble. The blizzard hit, and the satellite dish was destroyed. That was the final blow to our connection. We were truly alone, with a man who had lost his mind. Then we found the Vancite. It was a beautiful, glowing crystal.
For Elias, it was his ticket to glory.
Elias started acting really strange, like he was losing his mind over that crystal. He locked it away in his private bay and wouldn't let anyone else even look at it. It was like he was protecting a treasure, not doing science anymore.
He kept blaming those weird sonar pings for everything that went wrong.
He said the thing in the deep was getting aggressive and dangerous. It was just a way to keep us out of his business. So Lena started digging into the logs and found some really weird stuff. She realized the damage wasn't from the ice at all. Elias had been messing with the station's systems the whole time. Kai tried to fix a leak in the hull, but the whole thing just collapsed on him. Elias was the first one to reach him, but he didn't seem to be in any hurry. It was like he was just watching him die.
Kai's last words were about a loose bolt, which didn't make any sense at the time.
Lena and I were completely broken, but Elias just seemed relieved.
Everything he said about the mission felt like a total lie.
Lena knew we had to get out of there, so she started looking for a way to call for help. She found this old emergency transmitter hidden in the back of a storage locker. It was a long shot, but it was all we had. I heard shouting and ran to Elias's room, but it was already too late. Lena was slumped against the desk, and there was blood everywhere. Elias was standing right there, holding that wrench, looking absolutely insane. He started screaming about his legacy and how Lena was going to ruin it all. He didn't care about anyone else, just that stupid crystal. He was completely gone, just obsessed with his own fame. We started fighting, and it was a total nightmare. He tried to shove me toward the hangar, trying to make it look like an accident. I fought back with everything I had left in me. I finally reached the transmitter and started broadcasting everything I knew. I was trying to tell the world the truth before he could stop me. Then he grabbed me by the throat, and everything started to go black. My vision started to fade as he choked the life out of me. But I knew the truth was finally getting out there. I hit the floor hard, everything going black. He just stood there, looking down at me like I was nothing. The signal was out there now, drifting into the cold. It was the only thing I had left to give. I woke up in the pod, freezing and barely alive. I was just a speck in the middle of all that ice.
They were already calling him a hero on the news.
It made me sick to hear his name spoken like that. I tried to tell them, but they just looked at me with pity.
They didn't want to hear that their hero was a killer.
Then I met Anya, and for the first time, someone actually listened.
She didn't see a tragedy, she saw a lie.
She spent months peeling back the layers of his lies.
And there, buried in the static, was my own voice. The truth finally came out, piece by piece.
His legacy was nothing but a house of cards. The station is gone, but the truth is still here. It's a warning for anyone who thinks they can hide in the dark. I still look at these old photos sometimes. We were so young and hopeful back then. It's hard to believe how everything changed. That station had a sound all its own. It was this low, constant hum that never stopped. I still hear it in my dreams sometimes. I think about Lena every single day. She was the smartest person I ever knew. She deserved so much better than that. Kai was the backbone of our survival. He never complained, just fixed everything. I keep his old tool here on my desk. People ask if I'm afraid of the dark. It's not the dark that scares me. It's the silence that really gets to me. I still have a piece of the Vancite. It's locked away in a safe now. It still glows, even after all this time. Elias is dead, but his shadow is long. I wonder if he knew he'd destroy us all. Maybe he was just too blinded by his ego. The truth is a heavy burden to carry. You can't just walk away from it. It follows you like a ghost. I hope telling this story helps me let go. Maybe the silence won't be so loud now. I just want to find some peace. The Arctic is still there, waiting. It doesn't care about our secrets. It's just a frozen monument to everything. I wonder if the ice still holds the echoes of what happened. Sometimes, when the wind howls, I swear I can hear the station groaning. It's a sound that never really leaves you. People ask me why I keep digging into the past. They don't get that the truth isn't something you just bury. It's like a splinter in your mind, reminding you that you're still bleeding. I look at the photos of Lena and Kai, and I see the potential that was stolen. They were just trying to do their jobs. I owe it to them to make sure their story is told right. Elias thought he could control the narrative. He didn't count on the fact that the truth has a way of leaking out. He was wrong about everything. The Vancite sample is still in my safe, a cold reminder of the price of ambition. It doesn't glow like it used to. It's just a rock now, a heavy, silent witness to a crime. I wonder if the world will ever truly understand what happened at Station Polaris. It's easy to believe the official story, but the truth is much darker, much more human. I've spent years trying to piece together the fragments of that final broadcast. Every time I listen, I hear something new. It's like a puzzle that never quite gets finished. Maybe there is no closure. Maybe the best I can do is keep the memory alive. I'm not looking for forgiveness, just for the truth to be heard. The Arctic is still there, vast and indifferent. It doesn't care about our secrets, our betrayals, or our truths. It just exists, a frozen monument to everything we lost. Could you have heard the silent screams hidden in that broadcast? Or would you have been convinced by the whispers of the deep? The choice, I suppose, is yours. Back in 1986, the world felt way bigger and more mysterious. We were heading deep into the Arctic, a place most people never even see. Our mission was to find secrets hidden under the ice. Station Polaris was a total marvel, built to survive the worst winter imaginable. It was our home and our only shield against that freezing abyss outside. Inside, You could always hear the hum of machines and the ice groaning. Our team was small, but we were pretty tight, or so I thought. There was Elias, our legendary leader, and Lena, who could fix anything. Then there was Kai, our quiet engineer who kept us all going. The first few weeks were honestly incredible, just pure excitement. We were mapping vents and getting the Nautilus ready for the deep dive. Elias looked like a new man, his eyes just gleaming with passion. But then things started feeling a little off, like a song with a bad note. Tools went missing, and power reports started showing weird glitches. Elias just started pulling away, locking himself in his private bay all the time. Things just kept getting worse and harder to ignore. Lena's satellite link kept dropping, and Kai found actual cuts on the Nautilus. Elias tried to blame the cold, but I knew something was really wrong. Then the hydrophones started picking up these weird rhythmic pulses. It wasn't nature. It sounded like a mechanical heartbeat vibrating through the walls. Elias used it all to justify his paranoia, saying we were being watched. I found this custom wrench with Elias's initials hidden near the comms. It didn't belong there, and it definitely wasn't for the sub. I started wondering why he was messing with the comms when Lena was the pro. Lena found out that weeks of data logs were just gone, wiped clean. She was totally devastated, and I could see the fear in her eyes. When I showed her that wrench, we both realized he was tearing us apart. A massive blizzard hit, and our satellite dish was completely destroyed. It wasn't just the storm. It looked like someone had weakened the structure on purpose. Elias told us we were cut off, and he was way too calm about it. During a dive, I found something truly strange. It was a mineral formation pulsing with faint internal light. I brought a sample back, not knowing what I'd just started. Elias's reaction was immediate and intense. His eyes burned with a feverish, manic excitement. He snatched the mineral, whispering that this was his life's work. His excitement quickly turned into something dark and possessive. He claimed the discovery as his own, ignoring my work. He locked it away, his voice full of bitter triumph. Elias used the sonar pings to justify his paranoia. He locked down the station, claiming the unknown was aggressive. It was a perfect scapegoat for every new malfunction. Lena started piecing together her own suspicions. She found data that showed inconsistencies in Elias's work. She came to me, her face etched with fear. Tragedy struck when Kai tried to repair the hull. A support beam gave way, pinning him. Elias reached him first, but he seemed strangely slow. Kai died, his last words about a loose bolt. Lena and I were devastated, but Elias seemed relieved. Lena decided it was finally time to act. I heard shouting and rushed to the bay. The door was open and Lena was slumped on the floor. Elias stood over her, holding that heavy wrench. Elias hissed that she was going to ruin his legacy. He gestured at the crystal, his face full of rage. I realized it wasn't the ice. It was Elias all along. He lunged at me, the wrench swinging through the air. We fought in the lab, a brutal struggle for survival. He tried to push me toward the open hangar hatch. I managed to scramble away from him. My heart was pounding like a drum. Then I saw it, the emergency transmitter. He was coming for me again. I had to move fast. I dove for the transmitter. My fingers were shaking as I connected the wires. The transmitter finally hummed to life. I bypassed the protocols to get a signal out. He grabbed me by the throat. I couldn't breathe. But I kept my hand on the transmit button. I hit the button with everything I had. I started to tell them the truth. I told them about the murders. My voice was just a whisper in the static. He squeezed harder, and everything went dark.
All I could hear was that strange, rhythmic thrumming. The world only heard a bit of the truth. It was just static and noise to them.
The official reports called it a tragic accident.
They called him a hero.
But I was still alive. Kai had saved me without even knowing it. Nobody wanted to believe me at first. They thought Elias was a saint. But I had the recording. Anya found the truth in the static. The thrumming was all fake. And there I was, my voice finally being heard. It took months of painstaking work to piece it all together. We cross-referenced my medical logs with the timeline of events. Every piece of evidence pointed to a calculated betrayal. They finally recovered the wrench from the wreckage. The engraving matched exactly what I had described. It was the final nail in the coffin for his lies. The forensic analysis confirmed the damage was deliberate. The thruster cuts weren't caused by the ice. It was systematic sabotage designed to isolate us. Lena's salvage data was the final piece of the puzzle. It showed he'd been tampering with the life support systems. He was dismantling our home while we were still inside. Elias was consumed by jealousy and a lifetime of failure. He saw the discovery as his last chance at glory. He couldn't bear to share it with anyone. The world had believed a lie. The true terror was far more human and insidious. It was the betrayal of trust and the corruption of ambition. His legacy crumbled into dust. It was replaced by the truth of his monstrous crimes. The station became a monument to human darkness. My life became a testament to Lena and Kai.
The broadcast now stands as a desperate warning.
It's a final, defiant accusation from the heart of the ice.
Could you have heard the silent screams in that broadcast? Or would you have been convinced by the whispers of the beep?
The truth is so easily buried. The wind howls across the ice. I still hear them in the static of the radio. The truth will never be truly silenced.
I sit here in the quiet, just staring at this old radio.
The static is always there, reminding me of the silence that followed. Sometimes I swear I can still hear that rhythmic thrumming from the deep.
The world's moved on, but I'm still stuck on that ice shelf.
People ask if I regret going, if I wish I'd just stayed home. I tell them the truth was worth the cost, even if it cost me everything. I think about Lena and Kai every single day. They were the best of us, the ones who really believed in the mission. Their lives were stolen by a man who couldn't handle his own failures. Elias Vance is gone now, but his shadow still hangs over everything. He thought he could bury the truth under miles of ice. But he underestimated the persistence of those who seek it. I look at the Vancite sample sometimes. One piece of evidence I kept. It still glows with that strange internal light. It's beautiful, in a way, but it's also a tombstone. The Arctic is a place of extremes, where life and death are razor thin. I learned that the hard way. I've spent my life trying to reconcile what I saw with what the world was told. Sometimes I wonder if the truth really matters. Does it change anything? Does it bring them back? No, but it keeps the memory alive, and that has to be enough. I'm not the same man who left for Polaris all those years ago. That man died on the ice, along with my friends. The person who returned is someone who knows the cost of ambition. The ice is still there, waiting. It doesn't care about our stories or our truths. Maybe that's the most terrifying thing of all, the indifference of the world. So I keep telling the story. I keep speaking into the static, hoping someone is listening. Because if we stop remembering, then Elias Vance wins, And I won't let that happen.
That final night at the station still haunts me.
The flickering lights cast shadows everywhere. I finally saw Elias for who he really was. The sound of our struggle echoed through the halls.
It was a desperate fight for my life.
Every breath felt like it was being stolen.
My hand brushed against the control tail. I saw the emergency transmitter glowing in the dark.
It was my only chance to tell the truth.
I bypassed the protocols and started working the wires. The signal wouldn't be perfect, but it had to work. I had to get the word out before he stopped me. Elias lunged at me with pure rage in his eyes. He grabbed my throat and started to squeeze. I could feel the air leaving my lungs. With my last bit of strength, I hit the button. I started to speak, my voice raw and weak. I told them everything, the truth about it all. His grip tightened and my vision went black. I heard his shouts and the crashing of the lab, and everything just faded away to nothing. The world heard a chilling, fragmented broadcast. It was just static and garbled words. They thought it was an alien, but it was just madness. The reports called it a tragic accident. They even called Elias a hero for his final words. It was a lie that everyone just wanted to believe. But I survived, against all odds. Kai had prepared a pod for me before he died. My body was broken, but the truth was still intact. When I finally started talking, nobody wanted to believe me. They couldn't wrap their heads around the idea that Elias was a killer. But I had one thing he didn't count on. The broadcast itself was my secret weapon. My friends back home knew something was wrong. Say Anya Sharma, a brilliant cryptographer, started digging into the audio. She noticed the rhythmic thrumming sounded just like a human heartbeat. She found my voice buried under all that static.
Anya used spectral analysis to peel back his lies.
What she uncovered was honestly terrifying. Those sounds weren't from the deep sea at all. They were just synthesized frequencies. A total lie. And underneath it all, you could hear my final words. It took years of work to piece it all together. They even found the wrench I told them about. The engraving on it was the final piece of the puzzle. The truth finally came out after all that time. Elias was just a man consumed by his own jealousy. He couldn't stand the idea of sharing the glory with me. He cut us off from the world on purpose. He used the Arctic as his perfect cover for murder. The whole world bought his lie about being a hero. The station is gone now, buried under the ice. It's a monument to human darkness, not a disaster. My life is a testament to Lena and Kai's courage. Could you have heard the truth in that broadcast? Or would you have been fooled by his whispers too? The truth is still out there, waiting for someone to listen. The legal battles that followed were long and exhausting. I spent years in depositions, trying to explain the unexplainable. My testimony was picked apart by lawyers who didn't get it. But I wasn't alone in this fight. Anya Sharma became my anchor. She spent nights in her lab, building a case that couldn't be ignored. We revisited the audio files again and again. Every time we listened, we found something new. It was like peeling back layers of a dark, carefully constructed lie. The breakthrough came when Anya isolated the heartbeat rhythm. It wasn't just a sound, it was a synthetic loop. It was the smoking gun we needed. I remember the day we presented the evidence. My hands were shaking, but my voice was steady. I laid out the timeline and the cold, calculated betrayal. The board members looked at each other, shocked. They had built their careers on the myth of Elias Vance.
Now, that myth was crumbling before their eyes.
It wasn't a victory. Not really.
The damage was done, and the lives were lost.
But it was a start in honoring Lena and Kai. I often think about that final night on the station.
The cold, the silence, the feeling of being alone.
But now, I also think about the truth we pulled from that silence.
The world has moved on, as it always does.
But for me, the story of Station Polaris is never truly over. It's a reminder of how easily the truth can be buried.
So I ask you again, could you have heard the silent screams?
Or would you have been convinced by the whispers of the deep? The truth is out there, waiting for someone to listen. I often wonder if the world really gets what was lost in those depths.
It wasn't just a station or a few lives. It was a total betrayal of everything we stood for.
That silence after Polaris fell still echoes in my head every single day. People ask me if I regret going on that trip. I tell them regret is a luxury for people who didn't have to look into his eyes. I didn't choose that path, but I had to walk it until the end.
Lena's voice still haunts me when the wind picks up.
She saw the truth before anyone else and paid the ultimate price. I carry her memory like a compass, pointing me toward the truth. Kai was the backbone of our survival. His death wasn't just a tragedy. It was a calculated move in a game I didn't know we were playing.
I still think about that loose bolt he mentioned.
Elias Vance let his ambition consume his humanity. He thought he could bury the truth under layers of lies and ice. But the truth has a way of surfacing, no matter how deep you push it. That glowing sample was the catalyst for everything.
It promised discovery, but for Elias, it was just a trophy.
It's strange how something so small can hold so much darkness. People who read the official reports didn't have the context. They didn't hear the ice groaning against the hull. It's easy to judge from a distance, but being there was a different reality. Anya Sharma was the one who finally gave me a voice. Without her, my story would have been just another footnote. She saw the patterns in the static and refused to let the truth fade. The broadcast is a haunting artifact of that time. It's a mix of static, my own pleas, and the synthetic pulses Elias created. Every time I hear it, I'm transported back to that cold, dark station. So, I ask you again, could you have heard the silent screams?
Or would you have been convinced by the whispers of the deep?
The truth is out there, but it requires a willingness to look past the surface. I look back at the wreckage of my life. It's not just the station that's gone, but the version of me that trusted Elias. I'm still trying to reconcile the mentor I loved with the monster who destroyed everything. The silence of the Arctic is a heavy thing. Sometimes I can still hear the wind howling through the vents of Polaris. It's a sound that never really leaves you. I keep the wrench with his initials in a small box. It's a cold, hard piece of evidence that anchors me to the truth. It's not a trophy, but a reminder of the price of ambition. People ask if I've found peace. How can you find peace when the truth is still buried under miles of ice? I've learned that closure is a myth we tell ourselves. The truth doesn't bring peace, it just brings clarity. I think about Lena every day. She was the one who saw the cracks in the foundation before anyone else. I hope that wherever she is, she knows that her voice wasn't silenced. Kai was the one who kept us alive. His death was the moment I realized we were truly on our own.
He deserved better than to be a pawn in Elias's game.
The broadcast is still out there, floating in the digital ether.
It's a reminder that even when you think you've buried the truth, it has a way of finding its way back.
You just have to be willing to listen. I've spent years trying to make sense of it all. It's a heavy burden, but it's one I carry with pride.
In the end, the truth is the only thing that really matters.
The Arctic is a place of infinite mystery.
It's also a place where human darkness can hide in plain sight.
I hope that by telling this story, I can shed some light on the shadows.
So, I leave you with this.
The next time you hear a whisper in the dark, look a little closer. The truth is often hidden in the static, waiting for someone to listen.
Are you listening?
I wonder if the ice still holds the secrets of that night. The Arctic silence is deceptive, masking the echoes of our struggle. It feels like the station is still waiting to tell its story.
Looking back, I see the patterns I missed.
Elias wasn't just a mentor. He was a master of manipulation. He knew exactly how to isolate us, turning our fears against us. I remember the way the station felt when the power flickered. That constant hum seemed to vibrate through the floorboards. Every flicker of the lights felt like a warning we were too naive to heed. Lena was the first to realize something was wrong. Her sharp mind cut through the fog of Elias's lies. She found the purged logs and saw the systemic tampering. Kai's death was the turning point. He was a good man who couldn't fix the rot in our Lear. His last words about a loose bolt still haunt me.
I remember the night I found that wrench.
It had Elias's initials on it.
It was the first real evidence that he was behind the sabotage.
The Vancite sample was the catalyst for everything. Elias became obsessed with it. It was his final, desperate bid for glory. I can still hear the shouting that night.
It was Lena confronting Elias.
I rushed towards it, dreading what I might find.
When I saw him standing over her, I knew.
The ice hadn't killed her. He had. He was a monster who traded his humanity for a legacy built on blood. The final broadcast was my only chance. It was a desperate, garbled message sent into the void. I had to tell the world the truth, even if it was the last thing I did. He came at me with that wrench, his face twisted in pure rage. I barely dodged, and the metal slammed into the bulkhead behind me. The sound echoed through the lab, a reminder he was trying to kill me. We struggled in the dim light, a desperate dance for survival. He was older, but his madness gave him a terrifying, unnatural strength. He pushed me toward the open hangar hatch, toward the freezing abyss. My hand brushed the control panel, and I saw the emergency transmitter. It was partially disassembled, but the power light was glowing. I knew this was my only chance to expose him to the world. I shoved him away and scrambled toward the transmitter.
My fingers flew over the wires, bypassing the standard protocols.
I didn't need a clear signal. I just needed to send a message. Elias roared and lunged at me again, his face a mask of fury. He grabbed my throat, and I could feel the air leaving my lungs. My vision blurred, but my hand found the transmit button. I started to speak, my voice raw and barely a whisper. I told them everything, the sabotage, the murders, the truth about the Vancite. I knew it was a mess, but it was the truth. His grip tightened, and my vision went black. The last thing I heard was the rhythmic thrumming from the hydrophones. Then there was only silence. The world received a fragmented, chilling broadcast from Station Polaris. It was a chaotic burst of static, garbled words, and that rhythmic thrumming. Official reports quickly emerged, painting a picture of a tragic accident. But I survived, barely. I was found days later, unconscious but alive, in a small survival pod.
It was pure luck, a miracle in that frozen wasteland.
When I was finally coherent enough to speak, my story was met with skepticism. How could Elias Vance, the renowned scientist, have been a calculating murderer?
But I had a secret weapon, the broadcast itself.
I reached out to my old colleagues, people who knew my work. I needed someone with the technical expertise to look past the official narrative. Dr. Anya Sharma was the first person I trusted with the raw audio files. Anya began her work meticulously analyzing the sonic signature of the transmission. She focused on the rhythmic thrumming that Elias had claimed was an alien presence. It was a long, grueling process, but she was determined to find the truth. The breakthrough came when she discovered that the rhythm intensified in specific sections. It almost mimicked a human heartbeat. It was a synthesized, manipulated frequency. A chilling lie. Beneath the layers of static, Anya found something even more damning. She isolated fragments of my own voice, distorted but present. My final, desperate accusations were there, waiting to be heard. It took years of painstaking work to cross-reference everything. Anya and her team analyzed my medical logs and the station's structural failures. Every piece of evidence pointed to Elias's calculated systemic tampering. They even recovered the custom wrench I had described. It was identified by its unique engraving, a silent witness to the violence. It was the final, undeniable proof that Elias had been behind the sabotage. The truth finally emerged from the frozen silence. Elias Vance, consumed by jealousy, had seen the mineral discovery as his last chance at glory. He couldn't bear to share it, especially not with a younger, more brilliant protege. He had systematically dismantled our lifelines and isolated us. He methodically eliminated anyone who stood in his way. He used the harsh Arctic environment as his perfect cover for his monstrous crimes. The world had believed a lie, a carefully constructed narrative. But the true terror was far more human, far more insidious. It was the betrayal of trust and the corruption of ambition. Station Polaris became a monument to human darkness. My life became a testament to the courage of Lena and Kai. Could you have heard the silent screams hidden in that broadcast? The truth was finally laid bare for the world to see. Anya's team showed exactly how those heartbeat sounds were fake. It was a huge moment of vindication for all of us. I watched the crowd as the reality finally hit them. Their faces went from confused to absolutely horrified. The silence in that room was just deafening. The media scrambled to rewrite their entire story. Headlines about his heroic sacrifice were gone overnight. It was messy, but it was the price of the truth. I kept finding myself back at the coast, just staring at the water. It wasn't the Arctic, but it felt just as cold and indifferent. I couldn't stop thinking about Lena and Kai. That wrench ended up in a museum exhibit. It sat behind glass, just a cold monument to his ego. People walked by, never knowing what that tool really did. I wonder if he ever felt any real remorse. Did he know his legacy was just a pile of broken lives? I bet he died thinking he was the victim. That mineral sample finally went to the right people. It wasn't a trophy anymore, just something to be studied. It felt like a small step toward finally healing. I still have nightmares about the station sometimes. I hear the wind in that rhythmic thrumming in my sleep, but the truth is slowly silencing those ghosts. The real lesson of Polaris wasn't about the science. It was about how fragile trust really is. I carry that lesson with me every single day. Could you have heard the screams in that broadcast? Or would you have been fooled by the whispers too? That's the question I'm leaving with you. I often think about the silence that followed the broadcast. It wasn't just the absence of sound, but a heavy, pressing weight. People stopped talking about the mystery and started looking at the human cost. The investigation into Elias's past revealed a pattern of behavior. He had always been a man who would sacrifice anything for his own advancement. It was a bitter pill to swallow, knowing I had trusted him so completely.
I kept the small custom wrench I'd found as a reminder.
It wasn't a trophy, but a piece of evidence that kept me grounded. Every time I looked at it, I remembered the cold, the fear, and the truth. Lena and Kai were the real heroes of this story. They didn't seek fame or glory, just the truth. Their sacrifice was the foundation upon which the entire case was built. The Arctic is still there, vast and indifferent. It doesn't care about our petty human dramas. But for me, it will always be the place where I lost everything and found the truth. I've moved on in my own way.
I still work in oceanography, but I'm more careful now.
I look for the cracks in the system, the small inconsistencies that might point to something bigger. Sometimes when the wind blows just right, I can still hear the rhythmic thrumming. It's just a memory, I tell myself, a ghost of the past. But it's a reminder that some things never truly leave you. The world has moved on too. New mysteries, new discoveries, new heroes. But the story of Polaris remains a cautionary tale, a reminder of what happens when ambition overrides integrity. I'm not looking for closure anymore. I'm looking for understanding. I want to know why people do the things they do, why they choose the paths they choose. So, could you have heard the silent screams hidden in that broadcast? Or would you have been just like the rest of the world, convinced by the whispers of the deep? It's a question I leave with you, a final, lingering echo from the heart of the ice. I often wonder if the truth was always destined to be buried. Even now, the weight of what happened at Polaris feels like a physical presence. I still keep the old files in a locked cabinet, just in case. Sometimes I open them, looking for something I might have missed. The world has moved on, but I haven't. I see the same patterns of ambition and betrayal everywhere I look. I remember the cold most vividly. It wasn't just the temperature, it was a feeling of absolute isolation. Elias was a master of the narrative. He made us believe the threat was outside when it was sitting right at the table with us. I often think about what Lena would say if she were here. She had a way of cutting through the noise, of finding the signal in the static. And Kai. He was the backbone of that station. He didn't need words to show his loyalty. He just did the work. The truth is a heavy burden, but it's the only thing that keeps me going. I don't want to be a hero. I just want to make sure their stories aren't lost in the ice. I've learned that silence isn't always empty. Sometimes it's full of everything we're afraid to say. So I ask you again, could you have heard the screams in the static? Or would you have been just like the rest of them, listening to the whispers of the deep? I look at these old tapes, the ones Anya helped me clean out. They're just plastic and tape, but they hold the weight of everything we lost. It's strange how a recording brings back the smell of ozone and the wind. Anya's analysis changed everything for me. She showed me the unknown was just a series of synthesized frequencies. Elias wasn't fighting a monster. He was building a lie to keep us trapped. I remember the way he looked when he talked about the Vancite. It wasn't the look of a scientist making a discovery. It was the look of a man who had finally found his golden ticket, no matter the cost. The wrench I found, the one with his initials, was the final piece of the puzzle. It was a simple tool, but in his hands, It became a weapon. It was the physical proof of his betrayal. I think about Lena every single day. She was the one who kept us grounded, the one who saw the truth. Her death wasn't just a tragedy. It was a calculated move to silence her. And Kai, he died trying to fix a problem that didn't exist. He was a good man, a man who believed in the mission. He never stood a chance against Elias's cold ambition. The station itself is gone now, buried under miles of ice. It's a tomb, a monument to what happens when ambition turns into obsession. I hope the ice keeps its secrets, but I know the truth is out there. I often wonder if I could have done more, if I had seen the signs earlier, if I had spoken up sooner. But that's the trap, isn't it? The doubt that keeps you awake at night. The broadcast was my final act of defiance. It was a desperate, garbled mess, but it was the truth. And even if the world didn't listen then, they're listening now. So I ask you again, could you have heard the silent screams hidden in that Arctic broadcast? Or would you have been just like the rest of them, listening to the whispers of the deep? I look at the old, grainy photos of the team before everything fell apart. We were so young, so full of hope, standing on the deck of the ship in Resolute Bay. It's hard to reconcile those smiling faces with the nightmare that followed. Elias was our leader, the man we all looked up to. He had this way of making you feel like you were part of something truly monumental. I trusted him with my life, and that was my biggest mistake. Lena was the heart of the station, always keeping us sane when the isolation started to bite. She had a way of cutting through the tension with a joke or a sharp observation. I miss her voice in the quiet moments. And Kai, the man who could fix anything. He was the backbone of Polaris, the one who kept the lights on and the air flowing. He didn't deserve to end up as a casualty of Elias's greed. The station itself feels like a ghost now, a place where time stopped. I can still see the flickering lights and hear the hum of the ventilation. It's a memory that refuses to fade, no matter how hard I try. I keep the wrench on my desk, a reminder of what happened. It's heavy, cold, and stained with the truth. Every time I look at it, I'm back in that lab, fighting for my life. The broadcast was the only thing that mattered in the end. It was my voice, my truth, cutting through the static. It was the only way to make sure the world knew what Elias had done. Anya's work was the final piece of the puzzle. She showed me that the truth was always there, buried under the lies. It took time, but we finally brought it to light. Elias thought he could bury the truth in the ice, but he was wrong. The ice eventually gives up its secrets, and the truth has a way of finding its way out. He lost everything, and he deserved it. So I ask you again, could you have heard the silent screams hidden in that Arctic broadcast? Or would you have been just like the rest of them, listening to the whispers of the deep? I wonder if the world really wanted the truth. It was easier to believe in a deep-sea monster. Elias gave them exactly what they wanted. The signs were everywhere, hidden in plain sight. I was just too close to see it coming. I was way too trusting of him. That cursed mineral was the catalyst for everything. It was a mirror, reflecting his own desperate ambition. He was willing to burn it all down. I think about Lena and Kai every single day. They were the best of us. Their deaths were just sacrifices in his sick game. The broadcast was my final act of defiance. I knew the signal was weak, but I had to try. I had to make sure the truth survived. I was a ghost of myself when they found me. But the truth was still there, waiting. It took years, but we finally made them listen. Anya Sharma was the one who really cracked it. She saw through the static and found my voice.
She gave me back my story.
Elias Vance is gone now.
His legacy is just a cautionary tale.
The ice doesn't keep secrets forever.
Station Polaris is a tomb now. It's a monument to human darkness.
But it's also a testament to the truth.
Could you have heard the silent screams?
Or would you have been just like the rest?
The choice is yours.
I sit here now, years later, surrounded by the quiet hum of a normal life.
The memories of the ice, the cold, and the betrayal are never truly gone. Every time I hear a low-frequency hum, my heart skips a beat. People ask me if I regret going to Polaris.
It's a complicated question.
Without that mission, I wouldn't have known the truth about Elias.
I keep the wrench, the one with his initials, in a small box in my desk.
It's a heavy, cold reminder of the night everything fell apart.
It's not a trophy, but a piece of evidence that I survived his madness.
Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if Lena had lived. She was the one who really saw through him first.
We could have been a team, a real force for the truth.
The world has moved on, of course. They have their own crises, their own stories to tell. But every now and then, I see a headline about some new Arctic discovery. I don't talk about it much. Most people wouldn't believe me anyway.
I've learned that some truths are better left in the dark. The ice is still there, of course, vast and indifferent. It doesn't care about our petty ambitions or our tragic betrayals. It just keeps on freezing, swallowing everything in its path.
I often wonder if Elias ever felt any remorse. If he ever looks back at what he'd done and felt a shred of guilt. But then, I remember his eyes, cold and empty, and I know the answer. The truth is a heavy burden, but it's mine to carry. I owe it to Lena and Kai to keep it alive. That's why I'm telling you this story. So, I ask you one last time. Could you have heard the silent screams hidden in that broadcast? Or would you have been just like the rest of them, listening to the whispers of the deep and believing the lie? The choice, I suppose, is yours.